The wind off the lake carried a chill sharper than a blade. Pine needles whispered above the quiet water, and the golden light of afternoon sank into the stillness of Tahoe. To anyone else, it was a peaceful day at the Vander family's lake house. But for me, the scent of pine mixed with something bitter, the smell of dread. I sat on the porch, wrapped in a wool shawl, watching my daughter. Milena, or Lena as we called her, was moving between the table and the men who called themselves her family. Her husband, Preston Vandor, and his father, Garrett, laughed loudly, slamming their glasses together. Their laughter wasn't joy. It was the sound of arrogance echoing off the water. Lena smiled too brightly, pouring another round of aged scotch, pretending she belonged. I could see it in her eyes, that desperate glimmer that children get when they want to be loved. She had spent years trying to earn that love from men who had none to give. The Vander estate was as soulless as the people who owned it. Tall windows staring blankly at the lake, polished floors, trimmed hedges, every corner too perfect. The house didn't breathe warmth. It only displayed power. Even the sun seemed to glance off it coldly. Garrett leaned back, his heavy frame filling the chair. "Why's our little city girl all bundled up?" he boomed. Lena laughed nervously. "It's just windy, Mr. Garrett," Preston smirked. "Windy? Back in my day, girls swam in October. Made 'em tougher." I felt a cold ripple pass through me. There was something in his tone, something that made my heart race. "Leave her alone," I said softly. But my voice barely reached them. They were already feeding on the moment, father and son sharing that dangerous spark that always preceded cruelty. "Let's see how tough she really is," Garrett said suddenly, rising from his chair. His shadow fell long across the grass. "Come on, son." Before I could move, they had each grabbed one of Lena's arms. She gasped, startled. "Dad, Preston! What are you— Stop!" They laughed. The laughter of men who have never been told no. I ran after them as they dragged her toward the pier. "Garrett, stop this! You're drunk!" They didn't hear me. Or maybe they didn't care. The lake stretched before us, dark and deep, the kind of water that never gives back what it takes. "Go on, sweetheart," Preston mocked. "Show us those city swimming lessons," Lena's voice cracked. "Please don't." Then, with a single motion, they shoved her. The sound of her body hitting the water silenced everything. A splash, then nothing. Only the ripples spreading wider and wider. Garrett roared with laughter. "That'll wake her up." But Lena didn't resurface. One heartbeat, two. Then the lake gave her back. Pale face, a streak of blood at her temple, eyes wide and empty. And then it took her again. I screamed until my throat tore. "Help! She hit her head!" But Preston only waved. "Stop the drama, Eleanor. She can swim." And they walked away, got into their SUV, started the engine, and drove off, their laughter dissolving into the distance. I ran to the edge of the pier, staring into the black water, helpless. The wind bit my face and my knees gave out. Then, a faint sound. The distant hum of a small motor. Through the reeds, a fisherman appeared in an old inflatable boat. He saw my trembling hand pointing to the water and steered toward me without a word. He leaned over the edge, hooked something beneath the surface, her jacket, and with brutal effort, pulled her out. She was limp. Her lips were blue. He began pressing on her chest, breathing into her mouth. I called 911 with shaking hands, speaking calmly, as though my voice belonged to someone else. The ambulance came. They said concussion, hypothermia, water in her lungs. But alive. Barely. As they drove her away, I stood by the lake, staring into the water that had almost taken my child. The air felt heavy with finality, and then I made the call. My brother Isaac hadn't heard from me in years. "They're heading home," I whispered. "Do what you do best," he said nothing. He didn't need to. The hospital was white and sterile, smelling of bleach and fear. Machines beeped steadily beside her bed. My daughter lay still, her face pale as moonlight. When she woke, her voice was fragile. "Mom, did he call?" "Yes," I said. "And he sent flowers." She turned her face away. Tears gathered in her eyes. That was the moment I knew something inside her had broken. Not just her trust, but the illusion she had built around those men. Later that day, a nurse brought in a massive bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers. There was a note tucked inside. "My dear, Let's not let your mother's theatrics spoil our fun. I folded the paper quietly and put it in my pocket. War had been declared. That night, I sat outside the ICU door. I didn't cry. I didn't pray, I waited. The next morning, Isaac called. His voice was rough from lack of sleep. I found something, he said. Something old. 22 years ago, the same lake had swallowed another man, Garrett's business partner, Malcolm Pierce. Declared an accident. But there had been letters. Letters where Pierce accused Garrett of betrayal and theft. A week later, he was dead. The detective who handled the case had been paid off, his daughter threatened. It was all buried. Now, after what happened to Lena, Isaac had reopened the wound. While Lena healed, Garrett's perfect world began to crack. In his office, he took a call from an old political friend, the kind of man who only called when trouble smelled close. Garrett, the man said coldly, a journalist's been asking questions. About that old drowning. About you. Handle it, and don't let my name appear. The line went dead. Garrett's hands began to shake. He called Preston, but his son was too drunk, too arrogant to understand. Relax, Dad, Preston said. It's just her mother playing games. But Garrett knew. He remembered that calm voice on the phone. The voice of the woman who had just watched her daughter die and didn't scream anymore. He sent men to find Isaac, but they found only an empty apartment, dust, and silence. Isaac had never stayed still long enough for anyone to catch him. At that very moment, he sat in a rented room, typing the final words of his report. The headline read, "Drowned twice in the same lake. The Vandor family's 22-year secret. Facts, evidence, letters, testimony, all laid bare." He pressed publish. Within hours, the story was everywhere. News stations, social media. The faces of Garrett and Preston Vandor filled every screen. Business partners fled. Accounts froze. Calls went unanswered. Their empire, built on lies and fear, collapsed faster than anyone thought possible. Garrett tried to fight back, but every door was closed. Preston screamed at him, drunk and terrified. And for the first time in his life, Garrett felt what he had made others feel: helplessness. Weeks passed. Lena recovered. The color returned to her cheeks, though her eyes would never again be the same. She filed for divorce quietly and without hesitation. Preston wrote her letters from prison, full of apologies and love. She tore them apart without reading the second line. We packed her things together in silence. A peaceful silence. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. She had found her truth in the cold water. When everything was ready, I handed her a small set of keys, old keys, worn silver. I bought back our apartment, I said. The one near the library. She looked at me, eyes wide, and smiled. A real smile this time. Not the bright, brittle mask she had worn for years, but something soft, human, alive. We left the empty house behind without looking back. The world outside was quiet, washed clean by autumn rain. In the rearview mirror, the lake glimmered in the distance, calm, silent, reflecting the sky. It had taken much from us, but it had also given something back. Truth. As we drove toward our new beginning, Lena rested her head against the window, watching the trees blur by. The road ahead was open, and for the first time in years, I felt no fear. Only peace. Justice had come, not with sirens or courtrooms, but with a single phone call. The world had seen what hid behind the Vanders' perfect glass windows, and the lake that once kept their secret had finally spoken. The lake was still. The pine trees whispered above it again, their reflections trembling in the dark water. But this time, when I breathed in, I smelled only pine. No fear, just the scent of freedom.